So this video is to go over and introduce some of the key principles of BNU's Active Digital Design Framework, which is the framework that we're going to be using in the design of the VLE. So for some of you, you will have had some training on active digital design before and you may already be working within this framework, but for some of you this may be new or unfamiliar. So this video is to kind of summarise the framework and tell you the key things that you need to be doing and thinking about when you're setting up your module sites within the VLE. And we really want to use the upgrade to Blackboard Ultra as an opportunity to really refresh and reinforce that active digital design approach. The new VLE has much more capability in terms of having a really coherent approach to the active digital design. So the upgrade isn't just about the technology, it's also about the pedagogy and the design of our learning environment. So active digital design, it's an evidence-based framework that is really, its aim is to enhance both the accessibility and the quality of teaching and learning in digital spaces. So it's to make sure that the VLE is a really high quality learning environment. It happens to be hosted online, but it's really about that learning environment. What are students doing in the VLE to actually learn and progress in their understanding and their study? So there's 3 steps to the framework, and I'm going to go through each of those to start with. So the first step is about composition, which is all about building structure and familiarity within the VLE. So key features here are really about the architecture of your sites. So what's really important is that each module has a consistent look and feel using a standardized template. So it's sometimes we forget students aren't just studying my module, they're studying multiple modules across a program. And it doesn't matter how good my module is, if my module is set up differently to other academics on the course, then the students are going to find that really confusing. So if each module it's like, oh, where do I find this? Where do I find that? The students are going to be spending their time in friction with the VLE and spending time navigating through files, trying to find what they're looking for. So they're not spending their time learning. We want students, when the VLE, to be able to find content quickly and easily so they can focus on their learning. So we're providing a standardized module template, and the new template we've got for Blackboard Ultra is much more streamlined than the old module templates we used to use. So it's a consistent look and feel for every single module so that students know, okay, if I want to find the assessment information, I need to go to this area. If I want to find my lecture slides for week 3, I'm going to go to this area. So it's a consistent navigation and visual structure that makes it easy to navigate. We've designed that template in Ultra to be mobile friendly and to be accessible. So students using assistive technologies and students, just looking at the VLE on the bus can find things quickly and easily. So we've set up some clearly defined areas, and in your templates you'll find that there are clearly defined weekly folders. So here's the stuff for week 1, here's the stuff for week 2, so that it's really clear and obvious how students should be working through the module materials. There's also defined areas for assessments and feedback. So there's a central area, you put all of your assessment information, the submission links, that's where all the feedback happens. And then also, just as part of that, what we're also asking you to do is for each module is to just record a short video at the beginning. So welcome to the module, short video to welcome students to the module and set expectations about how you're going to use the VLE. So I am going to be posting pre-lecture resources a week in advance of the lectures. I am going to be uploading content. This is what the module is all about. So it's the first step is all about that composition. It's a familiar structure so that students are concentrating on learning, not on where on earth do I find this within the VLE. The second stage is all about storytelling, so creating a narrative flow. So rather than having just a collection of documents in a space, it may as well be Dropbox, the VLE allows us to have a narrative and to have storytelling in it so we can tell students what to do with that information. So that's really about humanizing the digital experience so that it's not just a sort of, impersonal set of files, but we're using the tools within the VLE to help students navigate that. So we're giving them instructions. We're telling them what to do with it. So just because a file is on the VLE, it doesn't mean that a student doesn't understand what to do with it. So things that you can do here. So for example, rather than just saying this is week 1, putting in, this is week 1 and then the topic of it. So, this is, DNA and chromosomes or whatever it is. And then a very short description, 75 words tops, accessible language. Fundamentally, this week is going to be all about this. Okay. We're encouraging you to put in short captured content and explainer videos. So rather than there's just a file there, if you put in a quick 2-minute explainer in Panopto, this is what I'd like you to do this week. I'd like you to watch this short video and then answer the questions in the quiz. That gives students a clear understanding of what they should be doing. You can also help with that with your file names, naming resources. Read this, watch this, do this within there. So you're giving instructions, you're not just providing the resources. And I think it really helps when you've got a consistent tone of voice from your academics, so probably your module leader. So you're building up trust and that connection through the module. And you're also building that connection between what's happening in the classroom and what's happening in the digital space. So you're making those connections. Right, so next week's lecture is going to be all about this. So I'd like you to do this pre-reading and do this quiz so that we can do this in the workshop. And then we'll consolidate it like that. So you're making those connections. You're telling that story of how you want your module to organise and how you want students to think about their learning. So the final step with active digital design is the resources. So actually supporting active learning, not just sort of passive consumption of files. Okay, so it's not just, oh, here's a link of stuff and students, well, maybe I'm clicking on this, clicking on it. You're giving structured activities, scaffolded activities to make sure that students are actually using those to learn. We recommend again that you do this in a weekly learning resource set, and it does help to have a bit of a consistent structure in there. So you might have some pre-lecture or pre-workshop or pre-class activities. You might have what's happening in the class, and you might have something that's a consolidation. So you might have an introduction, so it might be something you want them to read, or it might be a short explainer video or some other resource to kind of set the context. So, you know, I might direct a student to a really great video on YouTube that explains a particular scientific concept, for example. Or I could direct them to a textbook chapter, or I could direct them to a journal article if they were a master's student or a finalist, for example. Then you want something to engage with that. So how do you know that students actually read the video, read the reading, or watched the video? So some sort of interactive or diagnostic task. So it might be a quick multiple choice quiz. It could be a discussion forum. It could be to submit a little piece of formative work. There's lots of different ways that you could do it. And Ultra gives you more options for what you could do there. You could have a little survey. There's more and more options that you could have in terms of those kind of engaging resources. So how do you know that students have actually done some of that learning there? And then what you can also do is then an extension thing. So, okay, you've got the basics in place, you've understood that. Now let's take it to the next level. So maybe I'm going to direct you to a more sophisticated source. So it might be then a journal article or a research task, or, you know, it could be anything you like at that point. Again, it could be through a quiz, it could be through formative, it could be through something that you want them to prepare to bring to the classroom with them to discuss in class. So you're kind of, again, just creating that structure. So every week you go, this is what we're going to be doing. Here's the core information that you need. Have you understand that core information? And then here's how we're going to build on it as we go through. So if you get into that mindset of those kind of weekly learning resource sets, every week, okay, what are they doing? What resources have I given them? How am I checking it in? Then you're making sure that you're guiding students through and you're giving them really clear directions with their learning. So hopefully that's been a good overview of active digital design. So what you really need to do is to look at this video and then look at the module templates that we've given you, and we've given you some example courses that you can have a look at of how that might be implemented in an actual Blackboard site. So we've set up an example for you there. There is support and training available from my team in learning enhancement and academic practice, so we can help you with how to design your courses, what a good learning set might be, how to create that narrative flow. But if you think about those two things, it's the composition, the structure, the storytelling, I'm guiding students through the content, and then what actually are those resources that are supporting students to actually learn rather than just to click on some links.